It's 1999 and WWF is crushing WCW in the ratings war, but Vince McMahon decides, hey, what if we had another show? A phenomenon that's definitely not just Raw's little brother, sweaty men pretending to fight in their underwear, but on a different night. This isn't what it looked like, though, because unlike today, SmackDown debuted as a special on UPN called SmackDown, with the exclamation point because everything in the Attitude Era required extra punctuation. The name came from The Rock's catchphrase. Despite being the obvious B show from the start, SmackDown became a ratings hit for UPN when it launched as a weekly Thursday night series on August 26, 1999. During the Attitude Era, SmackDown featured all the same chaos as Raw, but with slightly less star power. The Rock would occasionally appear since the show was named after his catchphrase. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon ran things with an iron fist, The Undertaker went through his bizarre emo biker phase, and Kurt Angle sang songs about milk while wearing cowboy hats. The show found some success with ridiculous segments like Booker T fighting Stone Cold in a supermarket, but everything changed in March 2002 when WWE introduced the brand extension, splitting its roster between Raw and SmackDown. Suddenly, SmackDown had its own exclusive wrestlers, championships, and identity. For the first time, SmackDown became its own unique show rather than Raw Light. Stephanie McMahon was named the general manager, but the real creative genius behind the scenes was Paul Heyman. Under Heyman's leadership, SmackDown became the wrestling show and was legitimately better than Raw for several years. The heart of this era were the legendary SmackDown Six: Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Edge, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, and Chavo Guerrero. These six wrestlers delivered some of the greatest matches and moments in SmackDown history. Eddie Guerrero's Latino Heat persona connected with fans on a level nobody expected. Rey Mysterio defied all odds as the ultimate underdog, flying around the ring at 5 feet 6 inches against opponents twice his size while having to fight for the custody of his own son. Kurt Angle would go on to become the wrestling machine and a comedic genius. Edge would flourish in the mid-cards before going on to become the biggest villain in SmackDown history. Chavo Guerrero was cool for a few months before hopping to Raw to play golf, and Chris Benoit, well, Brock Lesnar became the face of SmackDown at just 25 years old, destroying everyone in his path. Lesnar and Angle's 60-minute Iron Man match on an episode of SmackDown showed that epic pay-per-view quality matches could happen even on weekly television. The Undertaker evolved his Deadman character. Big Show randomly switched between face and heel approximately 470 times while getting shot by Kurt Angle on live TV. John Cena transformed from a bland rookie to a freestyle rapper who wore throwback jerseys and spinner belts. His feuds with JBL, Kurt Angle, and Eddie Guerrero established him as the next big star before he was drafted to Raw. Batista emerged from Evolution's shadow as The Animal, and Randy Orton's feud with The Undertaker established him as a legit main eventer for the company. In 2005, SmackDown moved to Friday nights and somehow survived the dreaded Friday night death slot, where television shows typically go to die. The roster continued to evolve with King Booker, complete with ridiculous accent, Finlay, who loved to fight, Mr. Kennedy, and the Great Khali, who existed. Edge became the rated R superstar and one of WWE's top heels, eventually bringing his entire rated R soap opera with Vicky Guerrero to SmackDown. The Undertaker and Batista had an incredible feud that produced multiple classics. MVP introduced his VIP Lounge talk show segment. CM Punk led the Straight Edge Society and terrorized a tiny Dominic Mysterio. Vladimir Kozlov briefly got a push before everyone realized he had the personality of a wooden plank, and Jeff Hardy finally broke through as a main event star before becoming his own worst enemy and leaving the company. The era from 2004 to 2011 was SmackDown's glory years. You had stars like Edge, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, and The Undertaker in the main event scene. The mid-card was spicy with the likes of Dolph Ziggler, John Morrison, and Drew McIntyre in the mix, and the show also had its fair share of edgy moments and personal storylines. During these years, SmackDown bounced around like a foster child nobody wanted, moving from UPN to the CW to Sci-Fi. Despite the constant network changes, the show maintained its identity as the more wrestling-focused alternative to Raw, where someone was giving birth to a hand. By 2011, WWE decided having two separate rosters was too complicated for their creative team's collective 3 brain cells, and the brand split was effectively ended. SmackDown once again became Raw Recap and entered its dark ages. The show was still being taped on Tuesdays, meaning fans could read spoilers online before watching, which really killed any suspense about who would win scripted fights between sweaty men in underwear. Randy Orton became the face of SmackDown during this period. He feuded with Christian over the World Heavyweight Championship in matches that were critically acclaimed, but drew ratings that made network executives contemplate showing infomercials instead. Daniel Bryan began his rise to the top with the hilarious Yes and No Chance. Alberto Del Rio drove a different luxury car to the ring each week, while his personal ring announcer Ricardo Rodriguez introduced him with the enthusiasm of a man who just won the lottery, while the Great Khali was inexplicably still employed. Booker T joined the commentary team and introduced us to phrases like
Shucky, ducky, whack, whack,
while Big Show continued his legacy of flip-flopping between good guy and bad guy every other week. In January 2015, Brock Lesnar made a rare SmackDown appearance, reminding fans that top stars only showed up when contractually obligated. New Day began their journey from gospel singers nobody liked to cereal-eating unicorn enthusiasts. Mark Henry had his Hall of Pain run where he actually got to look strong for a few months, while SmackDown remained firmly entrenched as WWE's B-show with diminishing ratings. It was essentially Raw recaps with a few matches and segments thrown in there, but hey, at least it was better than Main Event or Superstars. By 2016, it was clear something needed to change. Vince McMahon, in his infinite wisdom, decided another brand split was the solution. Little did fans know this would lead to a SmackDown renaissance. On July 19, 2016, SmackDown was reborn as a live Tuesday night show called SmackDown Live, with its own distinct roster. WWE called this the New Era, but unlike their previous 47 new eras, this one actually delivered. The first draft established SmackDown as the underdog brand with fewer established stars than Raw. AJ Styles quickly became the face of SmackDown, defeating John Cena clean at SummerSlam and winning the WWE Championship from Dean Ambrose. Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan were appointed as on-screen commissioners, immediately establishing SmackDown as the show where wrestling mattered more than corporate buzzwords. General Manager Daniel Bryan established the first-ever SmackDown Women's Championship and Tag Team titles, creating opportunities for wrestlers who had been overlooked. The women's division flourished with the female version of SmackDown 6, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Natalya, Naomi, Carmella, and Alexa Bliss. All 6 would eventually become champions, with Lynch's straight-fire persona connecting strongly with fans, paving the way for her transformation into the Man. The tag team division gave us some strange pairings, like Heath Slater and Rhino. The Usos reinvented themselves with a new heel persona, and American Alpha spiced up the tag division. The Miz revitalized his career with an iconic Talking Smack promo. Dolph Ziggler gave us the now infamous
should have been me,
while James Ellsworth became an unlikely star when AJ Styles used him as a pawn against Dean Ambrose, before becoming Carmella's lackey. Speaking of Carmella, she made history and became the first ever Ms. Money in the Bank. In 2017, Shane McMahon feuded with Kevin Owens in a storyline that also involved Shane's father, Vince, getting headbutted and busted open. Jinder Mahal went from jobber to WWE champion overnight in a desperate attempt to boost WWE's presence in India. His modern-day Maharaja character was flanked by the Singh brothers, who took bumps that made you question their life insurance policies. Bray Wyatt finally won the WWE Championship inside the Elimination Chamber and had his big moment after years of start-stop pushes, only to drop the title to Randy Orton at WrestleMania, where Orton made his entrance while being followed by a giant sperm. In April 2018, SmackDown celebrated its 1000th episode, with legends returning and new storylines launching. The show experienced another superstar shakeup, with stars like Asuka and Jeff Hardy joining the Blue brand. But the biggest move came in October 2019 when SmackDown moved to Fox in a massive billion-dollar deal, returning to Friday nights as Friday Night SmackDown. The show debuted with a new set, new graphics, and The Rock returning to remind everyone where the name SmackDown came from 20 years earlier. The debut on Fox also saw Brock Lesnar squash Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship in less time than it takes to microwave a Hot Pocket. Cain Velasquez debuted to confront Lesnar, setting up a match in Saudi no one asked for. SmackDown's Fox era initially focused on more sports-like presentation before quickly reverting to the same old WWE formula. The pandemic in March 2020 forced shows into the empty Performance Center and later the Thunderdome with virtual fans. Roman Reigns returned from a pandemic hiatus with a new head-of-the-table persona and aligned with Paul Heyman, creating the most compelling character work of his career. The Bloodline storyline expanded to include the Usos, Sami Zayn, and finally Solo Sikoa, creating the most layered and emotionally engaging faction in modern WWE history before overstaying its welcome and including every Samoan under the sun. But if there's one thing we can take away from the story of SmackDown, it's the fact that sometimes the underdog, even if for a short period of time, can go on to become the big dog.
a big dog. Shut up.